The year 2002 marked the highly anticipated return of Spyro on home consoles with his first PlayStation 2 outing, Enter the Dragonfly. But while everyone's eyes were on the PS2, fans who just couldn't wait for a new adventure with the Purple Dragon got something else first: a direct sequel to the 2001 Game Boy Advance title Season of Ice. Spyro 2 Season of Flame, once again developed by Digital Eclipse, landed a little over a month before the PS2 game. And if you saw my last video, you already know the problem here. I have absolutely no nostalgic history with handheld Spyro. In fact, I actively disliked Season of Ice because of its questionable and often punishing design choices. The isometric perspective combined with an aggressively zoomed in camera turned basic platforming into a complete nightmare. So the obvious question is, why am I even playing the sequel? Because I have hope. So join me as I find out whether Season of Flame learned from its mistakes or if it's about to set that hope on fire.
GFrom, the gamer, the legend, he's come to show you the way in this world of games. GFrom Reviews.
Spyro, Sparx, Hunter and Bianca return to the Dragon Realms, excited to finally take a vacation. Except they arrive at a place that's cold and empty. A dragon elder... What the hell is this? Oh my god, do I have to listen to this gibberish the whole time? Every character sounds a little different, but this is a mess. Awful sound design and incredibly distracting. Bianca sounds like a gobbo straight out of Croc 2. Anyway, the Dragon Elder explains that an army of Rhinox has stolen all the fireflies, which means the dragons can't breathe fire anymore, including Spyro, who now has ice breath. And yes, the very first thing he does with it is aim at Hunter. I mean, was that really necessary? Sure, he's frozen solid now, but I guess the alternative would have been burnt fur. So congratulations on solid decision making. Either way, the mission is clear. Save the dragonflies, turn up the heat in the Dragon Realms, and find whoever's responsible for this mess. The adventure kicks off in the first of 3 homeworlds, Starry Plains, and if you've played Season of Ice, the déjà vu hits instantly. At first glance, almost nothing has changed. You're still stuck with an isometric view and a camera that's zoomed in way too close. The controls are identical too, but miracles do happen sometimes. One single feature improves the experience by roughly 10,000%. There's a map. An actual map. I know it sounds fake, but it's real. This is what the first game was desperately missing. It seems Digital Eclipse also realized that when you design massive maze-like levels, players might appreciate knowing where the hell they are. You uncover more of the map as you explore, which works perfectly fine for me. Suddenly, I'm in a good mood. Maybe this won't be painful. Sparx now constantly interrupts you to give advice, and at first it happens so often that I was already sharpening my complaint knife, but the game lets you turn tutorials off in the options menu. Complaint officially withdrawn. This time around you're not freeing frozen fairies, but instead freezing fireflies with your ice breath. They usually hang around specific spots or pop up once you've completed a task, and they're so slow that catching them is never a challenge. Every single one of them has a name, like Pyro over here. Agent 9 randomly shows up, which made me assume I'd get to play as him later. Then Moneybags appears, followed by Sheila, and it turns out Moneybags has abandoned Sparx levels entirely and pivoted hard into selling kangaroo stages instead. Diversification is important, I guess. Most levels stay locked until you've collected enough fireflies. New to the handheld games are power gates, like the one that temporarily boosts your ice breath so you can freeze patches of water. It melts again after a while, just in case you were starting to feel cozy. The atlas is also way more useful this time, showing little images that hint at how you obtain fireflies, whether it's a specific character or some annoying object you need to flame. As it turns out, I can't even fully complete this one yet, because ice breath doesn't work on the sundials. Starry Plains does its job as an introduction though, easing you into the controls and mechanics. Just like last time, you can't die here, which leaves me cautiously hopeful that the death counter in the later stages won't skyrocket into embarrassing territory all over again. In Country Farms, you help Henrietta the cow rescue her sister Daisy, who's been abducted by a Rhinoc. The smaller enemies behave how early Spyro enemies always do. They panic and run away the moment you get close. You can either charge them directly or freeze them. I already miss the fire breath, mainly because I can't burn haystacks. Okay. Water still kills you instantly. I wasn't expecting a change, but I'm disappointed all the same. Like in Year of the Dragon, most levels feature challenge portals, but the pacing briefly grinds to a halt before I can enter it. First, Sparx freezes the game to whisper advice directly into my ear, and immediately after that, a wizard freezes Spyro for real. I can practically feel my life ticking away. The first challenge is to keep the milk cold. You run in circles, freeze bottles, and eventually the game decides you've earned victory. Simple enough. Time to rescue Daisy. Well, almost. Just give it a second. Or several. No urgency here. Then Bianca shows up and unexpectedly restores Spyro's fire breath way earlier than I anticipated. I'm not arguing with results. You can now switch between fire and ice at any time, and suddenly the haystacks stand no chance. And then again something genuinely shocking happens. Fairies bring back their checkpoint magic. Yes, checkpoints are back!
Is this real life?
The entire level takes a little over 10 minutes, and I'm honestly surprised. This was fine. Actually fine. I remain cautiously optimistic. Back in Sunny Plains, you finally get to torch the sundials for a firefly, and with that out of the way, it's time to head to Shamrock Isle, or Ireland. You'll notice massive pink rocks blocking certain paths, and there's nothing you can do about them yet. So just mentally bookmark them for later. Then the game decides to get weird. 8-ball Rhinox. Actual walking pool balls. I don't know if this is foreshadowing a Spyro billiard spin-off, but they're incredibly annoying. And somehow they're still not the worst thing here. That honor goes to the fire pixies. Your task is to freeze 3 of them, which sounds harmless until you realize how this challenge actually works. They're fast, and if one of them touches a frozen pixie, it instantly breaks free and you're back to square one. So once you've frozen one, chasing the others is a complete waste of time. The only viable strategy is to wait. They tend to circle around their frozen friend, and with careful positioning, some tactical patience, and a generous dose of Irish luck, you'll eventually catch all 3. Even when you know what you're doing, it's still maddening. Thankfully, it doesn't quite reach the rage-inducing levels of chasing thieves in Season of Ice. What the game doesn't tell you straight away is that there's a second challenge involving 4 pixies. Unlike the PlayStation games where you're immediately asked if you want to help again, here you have to manually start another conversation. I discovered this far too late, naturally. One genuine improvement though is that characters won't start talking unless you're actually standing close to them, which is a small but very welcome mercy. Shamrock Isle also made something very clear. Even the best map in the world can't protect me from the usual problems. Missing that one cursed last gem, water that kills you instantly, distances that are still weirdly hard to judge, and my own impressive ability to mess things up. I wasn't exactly thrilled with this one. Indiana Jones ripoff Christopher greets you in Temple of Dune and asks you to get rid of bombs. And how do you do that? Yep, by charging them straight into water. Full confidence, no hesitation, horns first into a gigantic bomb. That's the kind of self-belief I aspire to. What I learned the hard way is that if you die without hitting a checkpoint, you get to do it all again unless you already cleared every bomb. Some enemies, like the mummy here, need to be frozen before you can charge them, just to keep things spicy. New this time around is that you can enter buildings filled with goodies, and later on some of them even house missions or portals. There are also more of those lovely pink rocks blocking paths, which means more backtracking later. Temple of Dune is over fairly quickly and mostly flies under the radar. Tiki Tropics is completely choked by vines, which Spyro slices through without any trouble. Sadly, that's where the good news end. The Tikis from Idle Springs are back, and it doesn't take long for them to become unbearable. It's embarrassing how often they nailed me with their fire breath, and the boomerang-throwing Rhinox aren't much better. They're fast, the projectiles blend into the environment, and they hit you before you even realize what's happening. On top of that, there's a quest where you have to light green torches that are only reachable with the ice power-up, which means repeatedly running back to the gate. Of course, I kept dying along the way, either to enemies or my classic misjudgment of angles and distances. My mood had completely shifted back into Season of Ice territory. The checkpoint fairy didn't really save the situation either. If I'm not mistaken, she only saves your progress once, which still results in a lot of replaying after death. This is also where I got my first real game overs, and that resets the entire quest except for the gems and fireflies you've already collected. I'll fully admit that some of this was on me, but Tiki Tropics feels like it simply refuses to learn from the mistakes of its predecessor. After talking to Agent 9, the game throws you straight into playing as him in Minty Mines, switching things up into a 2D side-scroller. The monkey can jump, double jump, duck, and shoot. And while that all sounds straightforward, there's a catch. You're not just moving from left to right. The level is built vertically too, so if you're aiming for all the gems, you'd better start checking every corner. You never actually run out of ammo, but once the counter hits 0, your weapon has a much lower fire rate. I don't understand why you have to duck to hit the treasure. The place is littered with doors you can enter. Some of them hide useful stuff like ammo, a second weapon, or a shield that basically functions as extra health. There's even a little sign above each door to tell you if it's worth going inside. Occasionally an enemy jumps out at you, but most of the time, the doors are just there. I'm getting strong flashbacks to Michael Jackson's Moonwalker on the Mega Drive. And while Agent 9 does move a bit on the slow side, I actually thought this section was fine. It's definitely less frustrating than playing as Spyro, but if you're searching for the new king of platformers, you might want to keep looking. Flying monkey. Wow. It's that time again where Moneybags somehow talks me into handing over my money. In return you get access to Canyon Hop, where you take control of Sheila the kangaroo. Her levels are... they're grid-based, kinda like Q-Bert. That alone wouldn't be a deal breaker. My real problem is the controls. I don't even know how to properly explain this. Every single time you move, the direction shifts. I press right and she goes northeast. Next time I press right, suddenly it's southeast. What's the logic here? I can't think of another game that handles movement like this. Direction shouldn't be confusing, especially not in a platformer. Apparently the solution is to keep pressing diagonally, which is always a joy on a D-pad. Anyway, Sheila can double jump as well, and she can stomp, which is how you deal with these flower pots. Stop laughing. Jesus Christ. Does it ever end? Thank you. The more I played, the more obvious it became that the entire concept behind these stages is fundamentally broken. Everything is so slow, combat feels clunky, dodging projectiles is harder than it needs to be, and if you miss a gem, you have my sympathies. All of this while the game laughs at you non-stop. And if you die, you're sent straight back to the beginning. That's what I choose to spend my free time on. Flying kangaroo. Wow. There's actually one more Agent 9 level hiding in Sunny Plains, and Alpine Adobe turns out to be a very different beast. This one is much more sprawling, throws more enemies at you, and is generously sprinkled with instant death cacti, just in case you were getting comfortable. Some platforms even drop the moment you step on them, which demands quick reactions that don't always mesh well with Agent 9's relaxed walking speed. Finding every last gem here is noticeably harder, and by the end I found it easier to just leave the level and re-enter it, assuming the ones I missed were probably near the start. They were. With the level size and Agent 9's slow movement, fully clearing Alpine Adobe isn't all that exciting. Still, I'd take this over Canyon Hop any day. I think at this point there's nothing left to do but to move on to the next homeworld. Crush? Okay, hold on. Several questions. First of all, Crush can talk now? Well, talk might be generous, but still. And Ripto is back? That reveal comes completely out of nowhere. They just drop him into the story with zero build-up. And he's after gems, not fireflies? Odd. Crush jumps around the arena and throws ice particles at you. When they land, you pick them up, throw them back at him, and then charge while he's stunned. That's basically the entire loop. There's not much depth to it, but I didn't need any. It's quick, it works, and it leaks better than anything involving Grandor and Season of Ice. For your effort, a fairy casts a spell that makes your charge stronger. In the second homeworld, Celestial Plains, you get to test your new supercharge. Wow. So now you can break purple boulders. There's also a new flame portal that temporarily boosts your fire breath, which sounds exciting until you realize it's completely useless here. So thanks for that. Other than those additions, there's really not much going on. It behaves like any other homeworld, just with a fresh coat of purple paint. For the first time on GBA, Spyro is asked to backtrack. First stop is Shamrock Isle. You smash the purple rock, find a locked chest, then smash another rock elsewhere to grab the key. The rest pretty much explains itself. Temple of Dune had purple rocks too, and breaking those leads you to a hidden portal. Oh no.
That thief is tall.
And yes, it's just as aggravating as last time. He's absurdly quick, the flame breath feels almost useless, and the whole chase turns into pure irritation. Here's the kicker. This is the last time the game ever asks you to backtrack. There are no further power-ups, no new abilities, nothing.
You could remove this entire idea, nothing of value would be lost.
Candy Lane gives me a sugar overdose just by looking at it. And naturally, one of the tasks here involves protecting a cake. Hold on. Wait a second. Oh, hell no. This is Nancy the Skater all over again. Thankfully, the floor isn't slippery this time, but the setup is still familiar in all the wrong ways. While this tiny guy assembles his cake at a painfully relaxed pace, waves of Rhinox come charging in from every possible direction, and if even one of them so much as brushes against the cake, the mission fails. The small GBA screen really isn't helping here. You can't stray too far from the center, and when enemies approach from the far side of the cake, you're basically relying on hope. It didn't take me that many attempts, but the Nancy trauma is very real.
This better be the only mission like it.
Other than that, Candy Lane is very by the numbers. Nothing especially great or awful, which means it's easy enough to digest. In Haunted Hills... Ah, a ghost! Oh, never mind. He politely asks if you can help him find his short, very talkative friend. There he is, a skull named Yorick. I'm having medieval flashbacks. Maybe I should replay that game someday. Once you pick him up, Yorick starts chiming in every now and then, interrupting the gameplay just to chat.
Normally, that's exactly the sort of thing I hate, but here, it somehow works.
The entire setup is so earnestly silly that it completely disarms me.
Hard to get around much when you're just a skull, don't you know? Can you scratch my nose for me? After all, I'm just a skull. I can't wear a watch, just being a skull and all. I'd hate to think I'm the only skull around.
This is peak skull humor, and you even get to answer him occasionally, which only makes it better. When he's reunited with the ghost, he's absolutely overjoyed.
Yay, piggyback ride.
I'm fully sold on this wacky cartoon horror level. And then the game remembers what it is and throws an obstacle course at you. Let's give it a try. Okay, I'm back. And once again, the aggressively zoomed in camera reveals itself as the true final boss. This challenge takes place inside a portal, which means no map. You either take a blind leap and hope the next platform exists, or you stop dead in your tracks to wrestle the camera with the L button, which is a fantastic idea when you're under time pressure. One especially annoying design choice is that when you die, you respawn at the checkpoint fairy, meaning you have to jog all the way back to the portal every single time. And when you finally win, you don't get teleported back to the ghost either.
Why? I've earned a shortcut.
That said, even with that rough patch, I still really like Haunted Hills. The humor does a lot of heavy lifting. Winter Mesa is a full-on Christmas level. The llamas with the funny hats are back.
Harold, what did you do?
You know, I see the word escort and I'm getting a full-on meltdown. For good reason. You're tasked with escorting Andy to a festival, and if you dare to move more than a few meters away from him, he panics and sprints all the way back to the start. Just look at this. It's completely unhinged. I've never seen a llama this emotionally demanding. The path is also lined with evil snowmen that freeze you, which pairs beautifully with an escort mission that already demands perfection. And it takes forever. Why does it take this long? At some point I learned the hard way that the only sane approach is to wipe out every enemy in the level before even attempting this quest. Even then, it's still a slow, miserable crawl that takes almost 2 minutes. By the end, my patience was gone and my mood was somewhere below freezing. Can it get any worse?
Pierre!
He wants you to light candles with your super flame scattered all over the level, and man, I'm completely done with scavenger hunts. What I didn't expect though was the return of ice hockey, one of my favorite minigames from Spyro 2, the actual good one. This time it's just you versus the goalie. 5 goals in 60 seconds. The controls are as slippery as you'd expect on ice, but somehow even worse. Shooting diagonally with the D-pad feels like rolling dice, but I managed to clear it on my second try. Then the hard challenge unlocks. 8 goals in 60 seconds. This one crushed my soul. Every time I thought I had a good run, I'd mess it up right at the end. After every goal, you're forced to run back to the center, wasting precious seconds, and that delay is brutal. level. It took me 20 long, miserable minutes to finally beat it, and I enjoyed exactly 0 seconds. Winter Mesa is easily the worst level so far, which is almost impressive given how cozy and charming it looks. Between the Andy escort, the hockey ordeal, and Pierre simply existing, this level single-handedly drained all the holiday spirit right out of me. Steffi the Mermaid greets you once again in Watertopia, and with a name like that, I was preparing for the worst, especially once floating platforms enter the picture. Surprisingly, it's fine. I drowned a few times, sure, but nothing rage-inducing. Ah, damn, that guy got me. Wait, where am I? This is a completely different building. And why did Spyro just casually walk through a rock? Alright, get this. Dying respawned me all the way on the left side of the map, which makes no sense. On top of that, a thief has stolen the Queen's crown, and I wasn't overflowing with confidence chasing him around with deadly pink water everywhere. Still, it's not nearly as bad as Roman City, and I managed to catch him without too much panic. All things considered, Watertopia is a decent level, even if it occasionally bends to the laws of space and logic when you least expect it. Rumble Jungle is the third Agent 9 mission, and somehow this one ended up being more pleasant than Alpine Adobe. Not because it does anything dramatically better, but simply because I managed to scoop up all the gems without any real fuss. It's a fairly sprawling level where everything kind of blends together visually, which doesn't help with orientation. The most annoying hazard here is easily the giant rocks constantly raining down from the sky, as if that was really necessary. Still, Celestial Plains only has this one monkey mission, so once it's done, you're officially free, for now. But as some of you might have guessed, there are 2 Sheila missions instead, which of course means Moneybags gets paid twice. Double the regret. The first one is Arctic Outback, where the path is blocked by icicles. The solution is to stomp on space heaters until the problem goes away. Enemies keep pelting me with rocks, which is playground behavior. And here's the twist I wasn't expecting. I didn't hate this one. Maybe something finally clicked because I made it to the end without any real drama. I wouldn't go so far as to say I enjoyed it, but I also didn't dread every second, which feels like progress. Lunar Ledges, however, is a completely different beast. First of all, there's green cheese, which reminds me that I still don't have an answer to a question I asked way back in my DuckTales review. The mystery lives on. Unfortunately, that's the most harmless thing about this level. The Rhinox dressed in dinosaur costumes are an absolute nightmare. Their fireballs are incredibly hard to avoid, and just when I thought it couldn't possibly get worse, grenade-throwing enemies with spike helmets show up. Those guys ended me almost every single time I ran into them. Nothing fills me with a joy quite like getting a game over and being sent back to deal with all of them again. This stage is awful. Yes, I'm not particularly good at it, but I never have to play it again, and that's all I really care about. With Celestial Plains wrapped up, you head towards Starry... No, who am I kidding? It's Gulp. He can talk too? It took me a moment to even figure out what the fight wanted from me. Gulp fires rockets, and after a while you can pick them up from the ground and launch them back at him. Simple on paper, not so much in practice. I had a rough time here, and once again it mostly comes down to the limited visibility. You don't want to stray too far from the rockets, but staying close to them is obviously dangerous, so you're constantly struck in this awkward middle ground. On top of that, aiming is a pain, especially when you've got another rocket chasing you down. So yeah, this one didn't really land for me. At least Sparx gets an extra hit point for all the effort. So now you arrive in Starry Plains, the final homeworld, and you might notice that it has 2 fewer levels than the previous ones, which makes me hopeful that this is where things start to calm down. The only true noteworthy addition in this safe haven is a new power gate that grants Spyro lightning breath. You can test it out on these little pedestals scattered around the area, and occasionally the game even asks you to combine 2 different power gates to reach certain goals. It's a neat idea and it works well enough, but then again, the homeworlds are usually the most painless parts of the experience. Moon Fondue introduces you to Captain Whiskers, which is easily the best name ever and sets expectations way too high. The level requires lightning breath to deal with certain enemies. Visually though, it's a swamp of green on slightly different green, and while it's not easy on the eyes, that very quickly becomes the least of your concerns. There's something fundamentally broken about the floating platforms in this game, and Moon Fondue puts it on full display. You see a platform calming moving back and forth, right? Except sometimes it just just doesn't exist. I'm standing here waiting and nothing happens. It's like you have to stand on some invisible sacred pixel to convince it to spawn.
If the game can't reliably make platforms appear, then maybe don't design entire levels around them.
This one ignores that advice completely, stuffing the place with these things and turning basic movement into a slow, miserable chore. As foretold by the stars, there's another protection mission. This time you're defending a space mouse while he loads cargo onto a spaceship, and this made me feel emotions I don't want to talk about. First problem, you need lightning breath, which means sprinting back to the power gate every 30 seconds. Second problem, there are simply too many enemies. They come from every direction imaginable, and the camera makes sure you only ever see half of them. When you die, you respawn far away. So I ended up leaving the portal after nearly every failed attempt just to refill health, stretching this ordeal into something truly special. The hit detection is sloppy, the controls feel unreliable, and then there's the sound design. It never stops. Ever. Who decided that listening to this non-stop for 20 minutes was acceptable? Because yeah, that's how long it took. 20 full minutes of hating life. This is worse than Sheila's escort mission in Year of the Dragon, and I don't say that lightly. I'm officially crowning it the worst minigame in the entire Spyro franchise. Every single element is working against you, and none of it is fun. I only won because they randomly stopped showing up. Probably a glitch. And that's Moon Fondue for you. I'm starting to think the answer to my long-running question is no. Gypsy Road greets you with the return of the 8-ball Rhinox, and that alone is enough to lower my mood by at least 10%. I thought we were done with these walking billiard references. And just to really commit to the bit, there's another Fire Pixies challenge. First 4 of them, then 5. It's the same story as before, still more frustrating than it has any right to be, still built around waiting patiently instead of actually chasing them, and still dependent on keeping your composure when everything in you wants to panic. Ugh, game over again. What? 0 lives? What's going on? Normally you get a game over when you reach 0.
So I had no idea what happened here, but from this point on, I didn't get game overs anymore.
I can keep playing with 0 lives, and if I die again, I have 5 lives all of a sudden. I don't want to complain, but I'm not sure if this is a glitch. Yorick, is that you? Or is this just his extended family? Then that must be the Skull King. The whole level leans heavily into this magic theme, and I'm into it. Aside from the pixies and the 8-ball annoyances, Gypsy Road is actually fairly pleasant. Solid enough that I didn't feel personally attacked. Dreamy Castle is the final full Spyro level, and with its soft, peaceful music and pastel skybox, I expected a calm, pleasant finale. I couldn't have been more wrong. Winter Mesa was frustrating because of specific missions. Moon Fondue revolved around one especially terrible challenge. Dreamy Castle doesn't rely on a single bad idea. The entire level design is the issue. Traversal here is easily the worst in the whole game. Once again, you're standing around waiting for platforms to show up, and once again, sometimes they just don't. You're never quite sure if you're supposed to trigger them somewhere else first, or if the game is simply taking its sweet time. Meanwhile, Spyro occasionally appears to stand on thin air, like gravity is optional. The level is massive, and reaching certain spots requires chaining several floating platforms together. Mess up once and you're starting over. And what the hell is that? Where did the platform go? Oh, it's invisible. It's clearly a glitch, but in a level already built around unreliable movement, that's unacceptable. There's also a quest where some guy is dangling from a hot air balloon. You flame him, he floats to another stop, you flame him again, repeat until he finally lands. It's exactly as thrilling as it sounds, especially in a layout that already makes basic navigation exhausting. Then comes another obstacle course packed with wizards who freeze you and drain precious seconds while you're still trying to figure out where the path even continues. At least there's a checkpoint right at the start. Once you know the route, it's doable, but by that point I was completely drained. Is Dreamy Castle as bad as Time Machine Lab from Season of Ice? Maybe not, but it's dangerously close.
Everything I dislike about GBA Spyro is concentrated right here.
Without question, this is the worst level in the game, and it cost me 50 precious minutes of my life. Agent 9 gets one last shot at redemption in Volcano Vaults, and this one definitely raises the difficulty. It feels larger than anything you've tackled with him before, with long stretches of platforms and plenty of vertical climbing. On top of that, you now have jetpack bros swooping in from behind. The level is packed with monkey-hating enemies, and I died quite a lot. Thanks to my mysterious stash of infinite lives, the whole thing is far less aggravating than it probably should be. I didn't hate it, but I'm also perfectly fine with this being Agent 9's final curse curtain call. This better be the last time I'm handing you money, bear. In Mondo Volcano, Sheila finds herself kicking Rhinox in bunny costumes who are bouncing on pogo sticks. No comment on that one. The grenade throwers are back, and there are also rocks that follow you around. Give me a break. Despite all that, this one didn't cause too much drama. Maybe the enemy placement is slightly more forgiving here, or maybe I've finally adapted to Sheila's unique control scheme. I still don't particularly enjoy these stages, but at least this one didn't drain my will to live.
Let's just say I'm even less sad knowing that this is the last time I had to deal with her.
It's final boss time and the game learned something. You don't need every single firefly to enter this time, only 75. I've got all 100, so we're good. To no one's surprise, Ripto is waiting for you. He's protected by a shield made up of 3 colored cards, each representing a different attack type: fire, ice, lightning. Conveniently, the 3 portal types you've been using throughout the game are placed around the arena, and the fight follows a strict pattern. You hit him with ice first, then fire, then lightning. Repeat that 3 times and that's it. Fight over. It's neither thrilling nor especially challenging, and it's over in what feels like record time. But I'll take this straightforward setup over the drawn-out grandeur battles any day of the week. Ripto explodes dramatically and is never heard from again.
Let's just pretend that's actually true.
Afterwards, a fairy rewards Spyro with the ability to travel to any level using the Atlas, which is really helpful now that the game is finished. Thank you for that incredibly timely upgrade. The gang returns to the Dragon Elder, the realms are saved, and Sparx has a small personal issue to deal with. Nothing a fake mustache can't fix. The Elder thanks Spyro and then asks him to return once he has collected all of the gems. Convenient timing because Moneybags is standing right there and, again, hands everything back without putting up a fight. As a reward, the old dragon unlocks a secret bonus game called Sparx Panic. It's another arcade-style distraction similar in spirit to Dragonfly X, but this one actually controls well and is more enjoyable. The objective is simple: eliminate all the small enemies on screen. As the rounds progress, more and more creatures flood the arena until it becomes overwhelming. I played for about 4 minutes before deciding I had seen enough. But as far as bonus content goes, it's a neat little extra. From the main menu you can also unlock Dragon Draughts, which is essentially a game of checkers against the Elder. I gave it 1 round and he wasn't a strategic mastermind. Maybe it becomes more challenging over time, maybe not. I did stick around to find out. I'm done.
Finally, I can put the controller down. Let's talk about the music and sound.
Like last time, the sound effects are crisp and varied, a few of them being horrendous. There's not much else to say there. And as for the weird voice effects, I think I've said enough. They're terrible and deserve the mute button. The soundtrack was once again composed by Robert Baffy and Ed Cosico, and they did a solid job giving Spyro a whimsical, adventurous vibe on the small screen. The GBA's technical limitations are still front and center. There's no hiding that crunchy, compressed texture, but the music works within those boundaries. And while Season of Flame doesn't recycle tracks quite as heavily as Season of Ice, a few tunes pull extra shifts. Case in point, the theme from Tiki Tropics also shows up in Rumble Jungle and Arctic Outback. It's not a bad track, but by the third time it kicks in, it can start to wear thin. A few other realms share background music too, but at least it's not as overdone this time around. On the upside, the soundtrack feels more carefully paired to most levels. There's more thought behind what you're hearing and where you're hearing it. Shamrock Isle has a cheery, jig-like tune that fits its clover-filled Luck of the Irish charm perfectly. Temple of Dune leans into a desert theme with a bouncy swaying melody, complete with that vaguely Middle Eastern flair. Then there's Moon Fondue, which stands out with a mysterious, spacey atmosphere that totally nails its moonlit setting. These little touches help each stage carve out its own identity instead of blending into a blur of generic filler. Even the pause menu theme manages to leave an impression. The title screen music also deserves a shout out, setting the tone right from the start with an upbeat, adventurous little hook that pulls you in. The boss battle theme is a bit of a mixed bag. It definitely ramps up the intensity with its pounding beat, but it just doesn't stick the landing like Rendor's theme did. All in all, Season of Flame's soundtrack is a mixed bag, but mostly in a good way. There isn't a single track I actively dislike, which already puts it ahead of Season of Ice and its handful of duds. That said, on a personal level, the music just doesn't have the same staying power.
I wasn't even a huge fan of Ice's OST at first, yet I've been humming its catchier tunes nearly every day for the past 4 months.
The trade-off is that it fits the environments better and avoids becoming annoying, which makes it a more subtle, better behaved soundtrack overall.
Still, there are a few tracks that deserve a moment in the spotlight. So here are my top 3 songs from Spyro 2 Season of Flame.
Number 3. This theme is pure whimsical bliss. The melody feels like a gentle journey through shimmering ice caves. It's light, airy, and oddly soothing. Don't be surprised if you catch yourself humming it out of the blue months later. It's got that kind of staying power. Number 2. The song that plays across Sheila's first level is an absolute toe tapper. This track is far more catchy than it has any right to be, an uplifting jam that keeps you on your feet. The music brings a fun vibe that's totally infectious. Number 1. Volcano Vaults delivers an intense and slick track that wouldn't sound out of place in a spy game. It nails the secret agent atmosphere, sounding very similar to the James Bond theme. How did they get away with it? It's making you feel cooler than a laser-toting monkey probably should.
Let's wrap this up.
Spyro 2 Season of Flame is undeniably a step up from its predecessor. The level design is far more forgiving this time around, with a lot less trial and error gliding. It's more predictable in a good way, making exploration feel smoother and much less frustrating. When you complete a task, you actually have to return to the quest giver to collect your reward. While that adds a bit of backtracking, I prefer it over being instantly yanked away from wherever I was mid-level. The addition of checkpoint fairies is a big improvement, even if I still think there could have been a few more of them sprinkled in. I don't hate the Agent 9 levels, but they're pretty generic. Sheila's levels are worse. Awkward controls and gameplay that feels more like a chore than a bonus. I'd rather play the Sparx levels. Thankfully, almost nothing in this game is as punishing as some of the speedway challenges from Season of Ice. The game gestures some genuinely fun and unique level themes and charming characters. Yorick in particular deserves special praise as the undisputed king of skull-based humor. That said, Season of Flame isn't free of issues. Instant death water is still here, and it's still too harsh. The isometric perspective remains a poor fit for precise platforming, and the zoomed-in camera continues to work against you. Much like Spyro 2 on PlayStation, this sequel adds a wider range of minigames, but here they're a very mixed bag. Some of the game's worst moments come from these side missions. The fire pixie chases are irritating, the obstacle courses suffer from poor visibility, and the protection missions, well, let's just say Moon Fondue has earned a permanent spot in my nightmares. Overall, the difficulty feels better balanced. I didn't rack up as many deaths as last time, though some enemy projectiles are still frustratingly hard to spot. I like the addition of different breath types, even if constantly running back and forth between power gates gets old fast. Sadly, it's very clear that no one cared about giving this game a somewhat decent story. The first one at least had some cutscenes here and there. Flame just throws Ripto and his minions into boss battles with zero build-up, and then it's just over. Such a waste of fun villains. Also, after 2 games, I'm so tired of searching and flaming a bunch of objects in every level. I'm so over it. But the single most important improvement is the map. Such a small feature, and yet it changes everything. Having a sense of direction makes the entire game more approachable.
So yes, Season of Flame improves a lot. But the truth is, I still didn't have a great time. The concept just doesn't click for me.
Of all the Spyro games I've reviewed so far, I'm placing this at number 4, behind the PlayStation trilogy, but comfortably ahead of the first GBA game.
If you're curious about Spyro's handheld beginnings, do yourself a favor. Skip Season of Ice and start here. It's way more user-friendly and much easier to get into. Just be prepared for its quirks and bring some patience for the ride.
Hey everyone, this is GFrom. Thank you so much for watching episode 3 of season 6. Feel free to rate, comment, subscribe and follow me on social media. You can also support me on Patreon or become a YouTube member if you like. I'll see you later. Have a nice day.